Yay Networks.
I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in to this, which is actually our 9th episode in our 12-part series of Dream Bold Travel and Adventure. So I'm Molly Kimball, registered dietitian. I'm here with Scott Wanke, physical therapy with Oxnard Health. We've talked about travel series throughout the past, couple of months, all types of experts who are sharing about their passion for travel, their experiences, how we can learn from it, the different steps, how we can plan for travel. We've had an amazing lineup of educators and inspiration for us. And this week's topic, the focus is mountain travel.
Yes, I'm very excited about this topic with mountain travel. Obviously, this has meant a lot to me throughout my life. This was something that my family did at least every other weekend with my father and my two brothers. And it's just near and dear to me.
It's just part of your core. It's like truly part of who you are. And you grew up, you've lived in like so many different places where hiking has been, and every other weekend is a lot. Where did you grow up?
So I was born in Detroit, Michigan, which a lot of people don't think about Michigan as kind of an outdoor place.
That's what I said. I was like, is there hiking there?
Absolutely. There's lots of hiking. We have lots of waterways, and we actually have our own little mountain range way up in the UP of Michigan called the Iron Mountains, which they are beautiful and cold, but they are beautiful and they are mountains.
And you have how many brothers?
Two brothers.
Two brothers, you, your dad. Your mom had passed away when you were younger.
Yes, she had passed away when I was pretty young. So this was our family thing. This was what we did as my two brothers, my dad and I. We're always outdoors and going camping.
So if you've listened to this podcast series on travel, you hear that Scott can pretty much make anything, do anything. As he was coming here for this podcast, our front porch is wet with wet paint. And someone was joking. They're like, that's okay. Scott will find a way to still scale up and arrive at the door, But this is something that I don't know that there's a situation you could be in mountain travel that you don't know how to handle.
Well, yeah, out of necessity or your past experience and just the way we grew up. And there's a lot of people like that outside of the New Orleans area. They're just comfortable in the mountains, and they may not be comfortable at Mardi Gras.
Right. And so we're going to be joined in just a little bit by James Stucker. He's one of our colleagues with Oxnard Health and Wellness Solutions. And if this is your first time tuning in and hearing this, what this is all about, this is part of the Dream Bold initiative. And this is something that is launched by our Oxnard Health and Wellness Solutions team, supported by our VP, Deidre Diaz. It's a really cool thing. So it's based on a book called The Dream Manager by Matthew Kelly. The idea being that what we strive for personally and what our goals are personally or professionally, they don't have to be totally separate from our day-to-day work. And so what can we do as an organization to help support those dreams of our colleagues, our coworkers, our friends at work? And so this is something that we're doing through Oshner, and there's all different types of topics through the year, but Scott and I specifically are leading the Travel and Adventure series. And this, as we said, is our 9th one. And as you scroll through and listen back to this podcast, you can see or hear all of the other 8. We've had how to plan financially. We've had a travel planner. We've had someone talk about solo travel, health insurance for travel, how to talk with your boss or your leader about taking time off, even if you think it's kind of a weird conversation or uncomfortable conversation. Tons of stuff. You can scroll back through that library. We're about to join our Zoom group. So right now, it's Monday. It's a Monday at noon. And every Monday at noon, we do this live through Zoom with our Oxnard group. So you're going to hear us talk about that, or people putting comments in the chat. You're not missing anything. There's nothing that you should be seeing. Everything is going to be very audio friendly. So with that, we'll join the Zoom.
Thank you.
All right. So y'all, welcome to, this is our 9th episode. Scott, I'm going to miss it when we're done.
I know. No tears yet.
I know. No tears yet. So this is our 9th episode in our Dream Bold Adventure Travel series. And this week is all about mountain travel. And this is so up your alley, I know.
Near and dear to my heart. I've been so excited for this episode. Not that I didn't like the other ones, don't get me wrong, but I'm really excited for this one.
This is just you.
Yes.
Talk to us about all the different types of mountain travel, because I think a lot of times someone might think ski trip.
Yes. So a lot of times when you hear mountains, and James is going to help us out with this too, that you think of mountains, you think of skiing, snowboarding, but please understand there's a lot more to do in the mountains. We have we have hiking, we've got climbing, we've got mountaineering, there's canyoneering trips. And then for the, less active, of course, you have little things like panning for gold.
I did that when I was a kid.
I did
too. It was really cool.
I did it like a few months ago. So, and you got rafting. And once you're out of the city, even just stargazing is more amazing out there without the light pollution. You've got wildlife. You've got a lot of other things other than just those kinetic physical activities. And it's a great place to just unhook, unwind, and relax.
So as we're talking mountain travel, that might mean ski trip for you as you're thinking through your own travels. It might mean hiking or mountain biking or whatever that could be. I do want you to talk with us a little bit about rock climbing. I have some questions about that.
Of course.
Then like ice climbing, as you said.
Oh.
And then Scott and I will be talking about, beyond the what to do when you're there, but how easy it can be to get to these destinations and how to get there, where to stay, how to decide where you're going, how to start planning for it. And then Scott, you're going to talk with us a lot about how to physically prepare.
Yes, absolutely.
And so with that, as we're kind of getting into that, the first let's start with is hiking, because James, you had, and that's why we wanted to bring you in with us, you've had just an incredible experience just recently, and share with us what that is. Because I think hearing your experience and hearing your passion for it, I think will be inspiring for our listeners too, to even start. Because if you're thinking mountains and skiing, whole other element here.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I gotta say, probably one of the greatest experiences of my life. I've been an outdoor enthusiast, since growing up in the mountains of the Sierra Nevadas in California. And I've always wanted to do a hike such as this. And, when you talk to people about hiking, one thing comes to mind is just going on a hike, just walking along a river or a lake, or, taking a trail up to the top of a path. That's kind of like day hiking, right? I went on a through hiking trip. So a through hike trip is multi-day, where you start at one point, you come out at another. And I have always wanted to do the John Muir Trail, which is a 200-mile trail that goes from Yosemite National Park in California and goes all the way down to Mount Whitney. They call that the John Muir Trail. There's the John Muir Wilderness, Ansel Adams Wilderness in between there, which is some of the most picturesque scenery you could ever be a part of. And my trail was about 105 miles over 12 days. We started halfway up the trail. We went into a place called Vermilion Valley Resort, and it's kind of a backpacker's camp. It's very hard to get in there. It's a single lane, broken road. And that goes for about 20 miles, and you go way deep in the mountains, and you've got this resort on a lake and it's got places for camping. It's got showers and laundry facilities. And that's where the midway point hikers start at one point, either Yosemite or Mount Whitney. They come to this halfway point, they get some showers, they get a home cooked meal, and it's all mostly backpackers. It's a really cool community.
And you said, so talk with us too. Had you ever done anything like this to this scale before?
No, not to this scale. My hiking was a 3 or 4 day backpacking trip along a river. We go and do some fishing, and we stay at the same spot. And we hike in, stay a few days, and then hike out.
3 or 4 days is still, that's no small feat for people. It's like just 3 or 4 days. Most people, we've never done an overnight hike like that. When I talk about a long hike, I look at Scott and I'm like, well, long for us. I mean, long might be 6 hours. So 3 to 4 days is still a lot, but never a through hike. Like you said, where you're starting at one point and going to the next. Had you spent a lot of time with mountain travel, with hiking before? Like, why was setting this goal to hike this trail? Why was this something that was such a priority for you?
I think I grew up in the mountains, and so it's always been a passion of mine. And shortly after, high school, joined the military, and I've spent, almost 30 years in the military and really didn't have a lot of time to go hiking. And after I retired in 2015 for the military, me and my uncle got back into hiking again, and I would fly back, and we do those 3 or 4 day trips. And when we got done with the trip, we would get home and we would break out the maps and we go, wouldn't it be cool to someday, and we would map out these treks in our mind and just dream, right? And we talk about the John Muir Trail, and suddenly one day in February, you have to register with the lottery service for that trail, and you do that through the Forest Service. You have to actually apply to get a permit, and they don't automatically give you a permit. So you do that in February each year. And my uncle got the permit. He got awarded 8 slots for the John Muir Trail to go in at that halfway
It's like winning
point.
the lottery.
And it really was for hikers. That was winning the lottery. And so we spent the next, what was it, February to August, the next 5 months or so, 5 or 6 months planning, purchasing gear, preparing, and we would set up biweekly Zoom calls with the group. Hey, where are you at? What kind of gear you still need? What are you training? What transportation? Some of us actually had to fly into California to meet, and so there was logistics involved, which it all worked out.
I wasn't familiar with where the Muir Trail was, and is the whole trail in California, or does it start in California?
The whole trail starts in California, and think of it, everybody's heard of the Pacific Crest Trail, right? The PCT. And the Pacific Crest Trail goes from the border of Mexico in California, and it goes all the way north through Oregon, Washington, and hits Canada. So the Pacific Crest Trail. The John Muir Trail is part of that Pacific Crest Trail. And so the trail coincides together. It follows the same path, but only for about 200 miles. And it's called the John Muir Trail because of John Muir's conservation efforts for that particular area. Out of the entire trail, there are a lot of people that are biased to the JMT, as they call it, because it crosses some of the most incredible passes along the trail, 14,000 foot passes where you're overlooking an entire landscape of forest and glacier lakes. And you see off in the distance the different peaks that now you got to hike down into the valley and back up over another crest. And so the JMT is all in California, and it follows the crest line of the Sierra Nevada mountains along the Pacific Crest Trail.
And I always love the beauty of those trips is what you get to see is only accessed on foot. So not everybody gets to see these beautiful landscapes that you get to witness because you did it on foot.
Absolutely. You see other hikers, but that's all you see is hikers and the wilderness. There's no vehicles. There's nothing. It's just you. So we went in at Vermilion Vacation Resort, which is about a 20-mile drive through the mountains to get to the resort. Then from there, it's about another 40 miles before we hit Red's Meadow, which is another backpackers resort. And so you are 20 miles into the wilderness, and we carry the GPS Garmin inReaches where if we need help or for emergency purposes, we can reach somebody. But you are in the middle of God's country. It's crisp, cool breeze, fresh air. The water is crystal clear. It just comes out of the ground and forms these glacial lakes. The fishing was phenomenal. The wildlife is everywhere. And you're in the middle of just beautiful country that very few people get to experience.
I wanted to ask you, in the wet, you went in the summer, didn't you? Because you keep on saying how cool the weather was. So was it much cooler than it is here in New Orleans?
So yes, the trip was August 1st to August 14th. And we, here in New Orleans, we're at sea level. My trip started at 7,300 foot elevation, and it stayed on average about 10,000 feet. So you hike up in the upper elevations. And so while it's hot here, up there, even though it's the middle of summer, the weather got down to about 40 degrees at night and got as high as 80, 85 in the afternoons. And so it gets pretty chilly. And when I know you can't see it on a podcast, but when you look at my pictures and we're having breakfast in the morning, we're all sitting around in a huddle with our, making our coffee, and we have puffy sweaters on and beanies. And even though it's the middle of the summer, it gets pretty brisk in the morning. And sometimes it can get down to where there's frost on the ground in the morning. It gets so cold, even though it's middle of summer. So that was an interesting dynamic. It was really cold in the mornings, but nice and warm and hot in the afternoons. So I think one of the questions that I was getting some of what you guys were asking me about, what did I take away from this? What was my thoughts, my retrospect on it? It was some of the most freeing moments that I've had. We talk about the stress of daily life and the stress of work. When you're out there in the mountains and you don't have cell service, there's no other distractions. It's just you, your close family, your friends enjoying the mountains. And I remember sitting there one afternoon, and we were all boiling water to have our meals. We take freeze-dried meals and pour the water in it. And I just remember thinking, the biggest stress I have is, when am I going to get my next water source so I can purify my water and make my meal? And what time do I want to get up in the morning to do the next 10 to 12 miles? Like that was the only decision you had to make. So it was so freeing to have such a, 10 to 12 days of that was all you had to make a decision about. Everything else was just enjoying the sun, the sights, fishing in a glacial lake. I took a lot of pictures of flowers because I don't know, it's weird. I got up there and it's a very harsh environment. It doesn't really rain that much in the Sierra Nevadas, right? And so what flowers do bloom, it's like a miracle, because you have these flowers just sitting on this outcrop of rock and nowhere else is there anything. And so an insect had to pollinate that, and the flowers had to bloom, and it had to get just enough rain. And so you don't really think about that until you're in that environment. And I just remember taking a lot of pictures of flowers, and I've never done that in my entire life. I've never taken pictures of flowers. And so I just started taking pictures of these cool orange and purple flowers, thinking how amazing it was. And that's all you think about up there. You have no care in the world. It was pretty fun.
And you have the time, you have the bandwidth in your brain to be able to slow down and have that appreciation for these. Did you find that some of this you were able to keep with you as you assimilated back into reality, that you've kept some of those, that you've kind of held on to some of this?
Yeah. We're already planning another trip to do with me, my family, and friends. And I think there was one of the State of the System that Oscar did. They had a guest speaker, and I'm sorry, the name doesn't. I can't recall the name of the guest speaker, but she had mentioned that you need to determine the things that you most enjoy in life, and then you have to make time for them, or you'll go nuts. And so, what I've taken away is that I really enjoy being in the mountains. Like, it was fantastic. And so I'm going to make time again to do that. One of my family members, my uncle, he's 74 years old, and, he made it through it. We had to take weight off of him, and we had to help him out along the way, and, literally patch his feet up because just the blisters that you get. And he's already excited, and he says he wants to do this as long as he can with us. And so what I take away is I'm really looking forward to the next trip with him and my family. And it's one of I remember vividly, there was 8 of us on the trip. And anytime you have 8 people together for such a long period of time, you would think that people would squabble or people would go their own way to eat their meal. Every morning and every afternoon, we sat around our circle. We would set up, we have bear canisters, because you have to take a bear canister on the trail with you. You can't keep your food in anything but a bear canister. It almost looks like a water jug with a screw on top, right? So we would sit around with all our bear canisters in a circle, and we would eat breakfast every morning, and we would eat dinner every evening together, like without missing a beat. And so we have all kinds of pictures of us sitting in our circles and just talking about the day's stories and goofing off on each other. And because there's no stresses, nobody's got anything to argue about. We just came together as family and friends and enjoyed what we were enjoying. It was incredible.
You had told Scott and I earlier that when you grew up in California, and this is, I think, fascinating that your grandparents owned a resort, and so you spent you and your parents lived there. Your parents worked there. You were born there, and so because of that, like fishing and hiking, that was just part of your life. It was what you were essentially born into, and then through the military and the different placements that you were, and then you ended up in New Orleans. And hiking and that life is not so prominent here. And so it's almost like when you're doing this, it's like putting you back to your roots. It's like bringing you back to that core of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's growing up in that environment, and when you're not around it anymore, you miss it. You get homesick. Everybody gets homesick for their hometown, and growing up on a resort, which was on the Kern River, I really missed it. And so this trip, it was the Dream Manager book that we all read that kind of sparked my reinvigorating efforts
Wow.
to really dream and go, what do I want to do? What do I, and I was like, man, I want to go back and I want to go back and hike the mountains of California again. And so, although me and my uncle's been on a few small trips, we started talking about a through hike. And I remember when my uncle called me and he said that they got the lottery, and I immediately called my boss, Richard Joint, and I said, Richard, I have a trip of a lifetime, and I need 3 weeks in August. I really want to go on this trip because it really was a trip of a lifetime. Right. And it was like, yeah, no, let's plan it, let's do it.
Wow.
And so yeah, it was
incredible.
Trip of a lifetime.
So some of the things that we've talked about in the weeks leading up to this podcast is, okay, planning and thinking and putting your big what if out there for travel. And so for James, they literally took the maps out, and we've talked about that too. My husband and I have a map of the world that's on a laminated placemat. I think it's for children to learn, but for us, we sort of look at that and use that. And Chelsea, who is one of our HR specialists who is presenting, they have basically a map of the United States that is a framed piece, and then when they go to a state, they're able to identify that, and it changes, and it's this piece of art that shows it. So having this visual that starts to help you place yourself into where you're going. And then what you also brought up was, once you had this opportunity, y'all found out in February or March, and the trip was not until August. So one of the things that our HR specialists were talking about too is, when you're asking for time off, especially if it's going to be 3 weeks, asking in advance and presenting it in a way that makes it harder for that leader to say no,
yes.
which is what James did. Yeah.
Yep.
I guess as we're talking about preparation, maybe do we want to start talking about how to physically prepare for hikes?
Well, yeah. First, Cam actually had a question.
Okay.
So he was talking about managing were you around any of the fires that were going on out there? And did you see the smoke? Did you have to alter your course at all? Did you get to stay on the trail the whole time?
So so great question. We did not have to alter our route. We started, at Vermilion Valley Resort, VVR, and we came out at Yosemite. We didn't see any smoke we didn't smell any smoke until after we came over Donahue Pass, which is the last pass that you cross going into Yosemite Valley. And so that mountain ridge kind of protected our hike from any smoke. And we didn't see any haze until we got over Donahue Pass. Most of those fires were in Northern California, Sacramento at the time. But they do on occasion have to rescue hikers or pull permits, and they have wilderness rangers that hike the trails all the time. And if there's a change in threat, they will have you turn around or exit at the next point where there's a a backpacker's camp. But we got lucky. We didn't have any threats on our trip. We just had some hazy scenes over Yosemite Valley, and there were fire restrictions, which meant we couldn't have an open fire on the entire trip. So, we use our little propane canisters to heat water, make coffee. But no open fires. We just.
And James, you kind of touched on this as well, the camaraderie that develops with the hikers that you see. Can you tell us about some of the people that you met on the trail, and what was your experience with the other hikers? This is my first through hike, right? So I really didn't have an idea of what the backpacking culture was like. There's an entire culture of backpackers that they do this every year, or they retire and all they do is hike and do different portions of the hike. You end up getting a trail name, right? You got to have a trail name on the camp. If you get a permit for 4 people and only 2 people make it on your permit, that means you've got 2 open slots. And so there's communities where they'll say, hey, do you got any slots on your permit from here to there? And so people will just link up, and they don't even know each other, but they'll link up and they'll go do this hike together.
What was your trail name?
My trail name ended up becoming Spammy. And there's Spammy. There's always a story behind these, right? And before we went, I brought a bunch of little single packets of Spam, because you can chop it up, put it in your other meals.
Oh, gosh. Scott and I's faces immediately.
Love Spam, right? And so when we were at Red's Meadow, at the backpacker camps, you can have fires. And I was taking little pieces of the Spam, putting it on a stick, and hold it next to the coals. And so it got hot and crispy and juicy. And I started eating the Spam, and I was like, oh my, this is really good, y'all. And I was like, there's some Spam for everybody. And I was getting really excited about it, apparently. And they all started calling me Spammy. So it stuck. I was Spam.
My father-in-law is a huge fan of Spam. He would have loved it. And I'm picturing like seared foie gras, but it's like the Spam version of that.
Yeah, I grew up on Spam. It's no foie gras.
No, but the searing that James is doing.
No, I can see it, especially when you're hiking, you're that hungry. Anything is the most delicious
we might
thing
not
you've
be
ever
turning
eaten.
up our nose there.
Yeah, when you're that hungry. But James, it's a great segue into we were going to talk about preparation and planning. So if you don't mind sticking around and kind of giving some tips as we go along with preparation, especially when it comes to hiking.
And James, too, what you can do, since the connection might be a little harder, is you can always just put it into the chat, too, and we'll be kind of monitoring the chat.
And James, along the line, parallel with Spam, have you ever had treat?
Yes.
It's another canned meat. It is horrible, unless you're camping. And then, of course, there's Scrapple. Does anyone down here eat Scrapple?
I haven't heard. I've heard of treat and Spam, but not Scrapple.
Wow.
Where is this going?
Sorry.
Where is this? This is
where should it go, or where is it actually going?
This is our health and wellness.
But other than packing canned meat for camping trips and hiking trips, so we're going to talk about some tips for you. Kind of already mentioned, do your research. So James went to the mountains, and the mountains, they're picturesque, they're beautiful. That's where my heart goes. But hiking, and especially overnights or out and back or round trips, they have hiking trails down the Everglades. It doesn't have to be the Western Mountains. Of course, he's in the Sierra Nevadas, but we have the Rockies, the Appalachian Trail, a very famous trail out there. But it does not have to be hilly terrain. There's where I'm from in Michigan, we have lots of backpacking trails. Not all of them are in the mountains. So if you're thinking, I would love to go hiking or backpacking, but I just don't want to tackle the remoteness or the terrain and elevation changes of a mountain range, can I still do this? Of course you can.
What's your preference like whenever you're looking at mountain travel? Are you more of a warm weather travel, or are you like a cold weather, or is it just like any and all?
I am 100% cold weather. To me, I would take a snowshoeing trip versus any day and a trip down in New Orleans. I prefer to be cold.
But no, I mean and for mountain travel, do you like the summertime of the hiking, or you like the snow there?
Summertime hiking, like James was describing, you can't.
Yeah.
It's just picturesque and beautiful, and
so you want mountain travel no matter what it is, if it's any time of the year.
But then begs the question, do you like more arid mountains? He's talking about the Sierra Nevadas. At that altitude, of course, it's cold and it's crisp, but there's not tons of water sources, and that's something else when you do your research where you're going. I also liked backpacking and camping down in Utah into Arizona, where it's very arid. It's a different type of terrain. It's very dry.
And so you have to plan totally different for hydration.
Right.
Yeah.
Planning ahead. And James can attest this, some of the things, if you are doing a multi-day backpack trip, what are your water sources like? What do you have to pack in? Because you think you're bringing everything you need in your bag on your back with you.
So to make sure that we have time to also talk about ski trip and all types of travel, let's kind of go through, if you're going to do a lengthy hike, because if you're going to do a hike that's, maybe an hour loop or an out and back, you need to focus on making sure you've got shoes that are comfortable and hydration.
Yes. Starts with those boots. And please, anyone chime in if they've ever worn the wrong shoes on a long hike. It is brutal. It's horrible. It's bad that day, but if you're also on a vacation, it's even worse the next day when you, James was mentioning patching up someone's feet. So if you are planning on any kind of vacation, you're going to be hiking, break those shoes in. I can't implore you enough. I'm not a podiatrist, and maybe they're loving me right now, but break those shoes in so you don't have troubles.
Before our first, when we get new hiking shoes, that's what we'll take a walk around the neighborhood with.
Absolutely.
We do shoes, not boots as much though.
Yeah. And, speaking to James, again, you can chime in anytime. If it was a backpacking trip, you need to have those boots on with some weight on your shoulders too, because that changes the kinetic chain, what you're putting through your feet. I know I'm getting technical, but just preparation. Victory loves preparation, and preparing for these longer hikes will just make it so much more enjoyable.
And so if something is a hike that's going to be an hour, a couple of hours, it's probably something a little less intimidating to people, and you just need to be sure your shoes are going to be comfortable. How would you suggest that because I think if someone hasn't done a lot of hiking, maybe that 1 hour to 3 hour window might feel like plenty.
Right.
What's the preparation for something like that?
Again, know the trail, know what is it? Is it a steep? Is it, I over strategize, but I like to know what soil type it is, knowing what shoes I'm going to wear, because, wearing the right shoes, whether it's over the ankle or under the ankle, because if it is kind of a scree field or rocky type of terrain, you can roll your ankle a little bit easier. So having something over the ankle, a little more support is great. But if it's just an out and back, just enjoy it. Have a good backpack, have good shoes, make sure you have plenty of water, food, and always prepare for a worst case scenario with a med kit.
Right. Now talk to us about websites that you can see, because trails, we use alltrails.com. That tells us, we use that to see, it kind of rates it. Is it easy? Is it moderate? Is it a challenge?
Right.
It tells you the details.
Those are great. And actually any Forest Service website, you can look up any trail. And now this day and age, everybody is commenting and giving you a review of the trail, which is great to plan 3-4 months ahead, but even right before you're going, because conditions change. This is outdoors. So depending on how much rain they've gotten, out west, have there been fires? The trail does change. It's not always the same. So getting up-to-date information on the trail is really helpful. And
if you are looking at one of those sites, or just as you're about to embark on it, there will be often a trail map. Getting the image of that on your phone, because you likely won't have internet access, and so you want to be able to at least have something that you can reference back.
Yes, yeah, and that something that I always forget, because I like a hard copy, I guess you would say, of any trail I go on, because as soon as you leave the parking lot, things change.
Right.
So I've got it on my phone. Well, no, you don't.
So preparation for hiking and longer hiking. We talked in length last week about what's in Scott's first aid kit. If you missed it, you're going to wonder, if you see Scott going through security on the way to a hike, you're going to be like, why does he have tampons and duct tape and zip ties like that guy?
I think he just scared some people, but yes.
So you can listen to last week's episode if you're like, why does he?
All right, so then I'll propose this. James, what's the strangest thing in your first aid kit or emergency bag?
Our first aid kit was moleskin and we took duct tape.
See?
No, you laugh.
Duct tape.
Duct tape, you cut it in little 1/2-inch strips so you can wrap it around the whole foot and keep that moleskin in place. literally duct tape and moleskin is a backpacker's best friend when you start to feel that blister come on, because your feet get damp, right? You're sweating on your feet. And when you're doing miles and miles of hiking, it's that constant friction. You're going to get blisters. But also, if you just put the moleskin on, that moleskin may come off, right, during the hike. So the duct tape keeps it in place.
Right.
We got very creative with putting that on.
So what are some other preparations for hiking?
So me personally, I don't know if I've talked about my background. My original degree was in wildlife and zoology. So I always like to know what the wildlife is. James commented on the bear canisters. If you are in bear country, they can smell food. I mean, you can bury it. I think I read something 500 feet into the ground, they'll still be able to smell it. So knowing the wildlife, if you're doing an overnight, what you need to do to prep, keep your food away from you. That's a scary type of wildlife.
Especially if it's an overnight. What about if it's a day hike?
Day hike, just make sure you clean up after yourself.
Okay.
But also just be aware, like there's people trails and there's animal trails. So know when they cross one another.
Right.
And, it's not something to be scared. It should be something to enjoy when you're out there. You may not run into a rattlesnake like you have,
Right.
but, there's just knowing what's out there. So you know what to do, because they should be happy, fun encounters, not, oh
Right.
my gosh, what do I do encounter?
Right.
But me personally, I always like to know, especially the animals. But the other thing I want to mention, because I don't hear it much down here, but where I'm from, we have poison ivy, poison oak, and poison sumac. So these are plants you really want to know what they look like, because if you get that stuff on your skin, you're going to be pretty miserable.
We heard some hikers on the last hike that we were at actually talking about poison oak, and they were like, my gosh, it's everywhere. And it was fortunately right after we started, so we still had Wi-Fi, internet access on our phones. And Brad and I looked at each other and we were like, let's Google that, because we weren't familiar. And so we had not done our due diligence. So investigating to see what's the plants that could give you a pretty serious rash, what animals are around that you need to prepare for.
Yep. Insects, including those animals, because you want to know if you get stung by something, if you're allergic, what you can have. Again, that first aid kit. Even I know if you're saying, I'm just out there for an hour and a half. Well, stuff happens.
And shoes. And then what about physically training for the hike?
Thank you for asking that. So now I'll put on my physical therapist foot. So please, this is like anything, you want to get the most enjoyment out of it. So understanding when you do your research, you're going to know what the elevation change is, what kind of terrain you're going to be on. So you want to train your legs, your feet, your core, everything to be able to handle that and get the most enjoyment out of it. So a lot of times we think, well, hiking, I'm just going to be using my legs. But if you have something on your back, you're going to be hauling some gear, you're going to put some strain there as well. So, get into a strengthening program, prep for it. James will probably attest he was preparing for a multi-day hike. I mean, your body has to be able to do it, because especially on those multi-day hikes, you don't really have a choice. You're out there, no one's going to come get you. You got to get up on your feet and keep going. So the more you prepare for it, the better. I always use the analogy, marathon runners don't just wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to run a marathon. They train. Right. I'm not saying go run miles and miles and miles. That's not what I'm saying at all, but just getting your body prepared for it. And you'll just get the most out of your trip. If
you're in a flat space like here in New Orleans and you have a hilly hike coming up, what's the best way to train for that?
So we have the levees, so that's great. But and here's a shameless
up and
plug.
down, up and
down. It's tedious and boring. I had to do it. We have an amazing fitness center that has equipment to train you at it's a higher step. So you're utilizing different musculature. So it's not necessarily you're going to get used to going uphill. That going uphill is uphill, but the right muscle groups that you need to be able to do it, and not only up, but to descend as well. We don't think of descending as being a pretty good quad workout, but it is.
Right.
It really is.
So even maybe like some stairwell training and going up every other step and then coming down. Like you said, our fitness center has a lot of different things, even if it is a treadmill on a steeper incline, a steeper grade, or but finding a way. I like the levees up and down, up and down. Put in a good podcast and tune out. So finding ways that you're going to mimic what that terrain is going to be.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And in knowing, what has bothered you in the past.
Yeah.
So if you have a nagging shoulder injury, a nagging hip injury, knee, ankle, just make sure that's at its optimal before you go. Again, we're not trying to scare anyone away from going on a trip. Just prepare for it.
Anything else on hiking that you would say for physical preparation, or if it was like overnight and all camping? I mean, that can vary so much. So I know that that's going to be just like an incredible laundry list of things, but anything else on hiking that you, while we're on that you want us to stay on?
Turn off your phone.
True. I liked your rule that we talked about last week, the rule that a guide shared with you.
You get 5 minutes to use your phone, take pictures, and then turn it off. So James kind of touched on this simplicity of being out on a trail. There's nothing else you have to do. It's wonderful. You just have to put one foot in front of the other, enjoy the scenery, enjoy the peace, enjoy the people you're with. That's why you're there. You're not trying to get a photo op all the time, although you see some great pictures, some flowers that James found, take those pictures, but just enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment.
And food. What are some of the things that you pack?
So James can weigh in on this. So there's a lot of backpacker centric food if you're going on multi-days. Just know, and I don't know how you prepare, James, but I'm a stickler with how many calories I'm going to need per day. And I base the food I bring by caloric content, which can
How many do you aim for a day for you personally?
Well, on backpacking trails, I know that I'm going to need more than if I was just sitting here at work
right.
or
totally.
doing a podcast with Molly Kimball.
Right.
I'm going to need more calories. So I'll beef those up. And I also stagger it with the days that I know are heavy up and down days. But knowing what for your body type and your age, what calories you need for physical activity to be able to complete. Either way, you're going to lose some weight on these trips.
And if you're like, how do I figure that out? One of our attendees through the Zoom right now is Lauren Hewlin, one of our registered dietitians. You can always email us at nutrition@ochsner.org, and we can work through that, because it's very, very different when Scott has his manager hat on with the physical therapy clinics versus when you're out there training so hard. And you may normally say, well, I really try to watch my carbs or whatever it is. That's not going to be the time to watch your carbs though. We need it to fuel your body.
Eat Spam. Why not?
Spam and saltines. But finding what it is that's going to be your hydration source.
On the backpacking trip, when you're doing a through hike, this is like your opportunity to eat really whatever you want. You absolutely. So real quick story. I got into trouble. I was about 4 days into the hike, and I thought I was eating too much. And so the altitude sickness was getting to me. I wasn't 100% acclimatized. And so I didn't have that appetite. And so one morning I kind of only nibbled through my breakfast, and I wasn't drinking a whole lot. And about halfway through, I think it was the fourth day, we were going up over this path. I wasn't feeling good. I was getting a headache. I was nauseated. And we ran across a wilderness ranger, and he'd asked, he's the normal things, checks and balances, asked how I was doing. And I said I wasn't feeling too well. And so the weirdest thing, he asked me to spit. Okay, so I spit, and it was like aerated. And he was like, you're dehydrated, and you're probably malnourished. You need to eat something. You need to drink something right now. I was like, okay.
Cool
so
test.
Me and my buddy sat down. It was really interesting. And when I was thinking back on it, I was worried I was eating too much food, but you burn through so many, like they say 5,000 calories a day when you're doing 10 to 12 miles, and you're not taking as many stops to drink water either, because you're sweating a lot. And so that was something that I had to learn on the trail. It's not something you can learn in a video or plan for. I'm a pretty avid outdoorsman, and I got myself into trouble just never experiencing something like that. And so, what do you take to eat? You take whatever you want and as much as you can carry, because somebody else is going to eat it on the trail. You're always trading food. I took Oreo cookies. I took Spam. We had our backpacker meals.
And one of the things that I look at too is, when you're looking at how are you going to fuel your body, like we were just saying, this is a time to, if you are normally a lower carb person, you've been playing around with keto, this is not the time. But, while James has his Oreos and Spam, you also want to think, how are these foods going to leave you feeling? And so if you did have something that you're like, oh, no, I'm going to get my carbs through, like Swedish fish, like the gummies or Oreos or whatever, those sugars can be good for that quick release of energy, but also know that you don't want to have yourself crashing. So it's still important that when you're thinking, what's going to be portable? What am I going to bring? It's yes, we need to up our calories, up our nutrition, up our carbs, and up everything overall and our fats. But we still want to be mindful of nourishing our bodies and fueling our bodies well. So some of the things that we'll do is sandwiches. We'll do sliced bread sandwiches for shorter hikes, but also wraps, because that wrap is never going to squish because of the nature of the wrap. But we'll do wraps or sandwiches that give the carbs. Of course, there's ample types of granola, nut blends, granola bars, and stuff like that. I talked about the salmon on the plane. I've even made that. If it's a shorter hike, I'll bring that. Bees love salmon.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you eat bees.
No, that's my protein source. But I would still really encourage that there may be something that is sort of like, that's sort of like a little bit of a treat that we have as the extra, but still it's really important that we really want to nourish our bodies well, because we don't want to put ourselves onto this blood sugar roller coaster and energy roller coaster, but we also don't want to be restrictive. So it is really important to find that balance. So
that's your public service announcement from registered dietitian Molly Kimball.
We can't leave it on the note of spam and Oreo cookies and transition to skiing. So Scott, with that, talk with us about the other side, because that's like warm weather mountain travel. Talk with us about cold weather ski trips.
Yes, thank you. So skiing. So a lot of times this has been, and the reason we're bringing this up is people have, when we put that survey out, a lot of people said they want to take a ski trip. So I just want to make sure we give as much information on skiing as possible. One, I'm going to leave this out there. Skiing is so amazing. It is so much fun. It's one of the best things you could ever do. There's nothing else on the planet that even gets close to going skiing or snowboarding. That said, a lot of times people think it's unattainable because of the expense. So I just want to throw out, there's a lot of other options when you're thinking about taking a ski trip, because the U.S., of course, you can have the whole alpine experience where you stay in a quaint little mountain town right on the side of the mountain and just go skiing all day. That is amazing, but obviously that's probably the most expensive option. So there's other ways to do it, and we don't always have to think of the Western mountains as skiing. This is the other thing I wanted to throw out. There is skiing. We have Arkansas, we have Tennessee, we have North Carolina, we have West Virginia. Those are not that far away, and they're not quite as expensive, some of the larger resorts when you head out west. Now, I have gone skiing up in Vermont, but I can't attest to much up there. And then even when you are heading out west, it doesn't always have to be a vacation where you stay in those mountain towns. A lot of the cities out west are accessible for skiing. So you could stay in Denver. You could stay in Salt Lake City. You can say Vancouver is amazing. I mean, Reno, Nevada, there's a lot of cities that you can have both the urban city experience as well as having those day trips, ski trips. So those are all options. Also, when you are looking at even out west, some of the ski resorts to go to, there are a lot of smaller resorts. So let's say you pick a very large resort. I'll give an example. When I worked at Breckenridge. Breckenridge is both a town and a ski resort. They have every amenity. They cater to you, and it's expensive. So the lift tickets are expensive. There's a smaller resort near Breckenridge called Arapahoe Basin, which is phenomenal. Has some of the best terrain you could ever ski and ride, but it's not as expensive. That said, they don't have all the amenities. They're not going to cater to you. They're not going to clean your skis off for you. It's bare bones skiing and snowboarding, and it's a blast. There's other places, like there's Big Sky, Montana, and there's a smaller resort called Bridger Bowl. Big Sky is going to cater to everything you need. Bridger Bowl, you show up and you go skiing. That's it. So if you are looking at a place to go skiing, look around. It may not be one of the larger resorts you want to go to if you're trying to save money. But then I'm poo-pooing on the big ski experience, but it's expensive. As someone who has worked and lived in ski towns, I am fully aware it's very expensive.
It may be something, I guess, depending on who you're traveling with. If there's someone who's going with you who may not want to ski the days that you do, think about what does that space have to offer them also.
Exactly. And there's the plus with, if you are staying in a ski town, there's a lot of options outside of skiing. Also, you may have gone skiing for the first time in your life for 2 days and you are so sore, you can barely fart. So you need to do something different. So in those ski towns, you can have everything from dog sledding, snowshoeing. My personal favorite, I love going snowmobiling. And dog sledding. If you have a chance, it is so amazing. It's so much fun. Sledding, ice skating. There's so much more to do than just skiing in some of these ski towns. And then, of course, like I mentioned, if you stay in the cities near a ski area, one of the larger cities, you have the whole urban experience.
If anybody can put into the chat too, if there's people who have not gone skiing and like it scares you, because there's some people who have never gone skiing in their life and the idea seems really cool, but it also seems really terrifying.
Yes. And I try to, whenever I do something new, I try to look at it as if I'm an alien from another planet going, wait, what's going on? So you're telling me that you're a person standing on two little sticks, sliding down a slick surface as fast as you can. And that's fun. The answer is yes, it is. It's totally fun. It's a rush. It's amazing. There's also lessons available.
Right.
There's you do not have to what you see in movies, someone bombing down a mountain. There are every grade of slope available,
and not being afraid to ask for help.
Absolutely.
I grew up skiing with my dad. Each year we would kind of do. He sounds like he and your dad might have gotten along really well, and we would stay in my stepmom called them like the mom and pop places, know? And so, I grew up knowing how to ski and didn't go skiing for a lot of years. And Brad and I had never gone skiing, just not for any reason. And then maybe about 10 years ago, he was like, let's go skiing. And he had never skied before. And at the time he was early 40s. And so he had no shame. He said, I'm going to go to ski school. And they call it the Never Ever Ski School. And so I did the class with him. So I'm in the Never Ever, and the instructor thought he was like the best instructor ever for me because you got it so quickly. Like he thought he was fantastic. But Brad went through that ski school for 2 full days. He was on the little bunny slope that had is like the little carpet ride that brings you up there. Then you ski down about 100 yards and over and over. And then the next day he graduated to the greens, which is the baby, still the easier of the slopes. And he did the same couple of easy greens over and over. But he had no ego about it. As we were getting to the elevator that night, there's guys actually when we were on our way to ski school the first day, there's a guy that looks like he skis for a living, and he's kind of got the walk and, he's just like the cool ski guy. And Brad's asking him, excuse me, like, can you tell me where the ski school is? The guy's like, no, dude, I don't know where the ski school is. Next day we get into the elevator and we're standing there and it's a whole crowd and it's again, cool ski guys, and they're kind of like that. And Brad's like, tomorrow, and he looks at me, he's like, I would like to try some more challenging greens. And like the greens, it's like green, blue, black. And these guys are probably doing the double blacks. And he's like, his goal is the more challenging greens. Now he whips past me. I mean, but he kept trying and trying and trying. And like it only took him like, let's be honest, 2 days to like pass me up. Yeah. But putting your ego aside, signing up for it and just being like, I know nothing, help educate me, and
have fun. And one thing that I actually had a chance to teach skiing and snowboarding. And one of the things that we would always do, beginners, they fall a lot. So we'd have a halfway point on a run. And we just sit there and look out. And you look across the expanse, see the trees, the snow, the blue sky. It's amazing. There's a reason you're out there and enjoying it. So the whole point is to have fun. And again, put your ego aside because you're gonna fall.
Your ego aside.
So
Wait, I can't tell you how much I laughed. I'll tell this one really quick story. When we first were graduating to actually the real ski lift, you line up and there's all these people and there's a lot of people around and you're trying to finagle how to get on there. And there's a line for the ski school specifically, and it had a plastic pole in the middle of it that said ski lessons. And you're supposed to go on one side or the other. Brad goes both skis around it, and the pole keeps hitting him in the face. And because you're
so fun for you,
it's declining down a little bit to try to make it easy for you to just glide and glide down. He can't back up because it's going uphill to back up, and he can't. So he takes inches back a little bit, and then boom, hits his face in the pole. I'm behind him. I can't stop. I'm crying, laughing, and the ski instructor had to come behind him, hands on his waist, and pull him, like remove him from the ski lesson sign.
So, again,
you
fun.
Go aside.
Just funny. Maybe not for you, but the people around you.
Right.
And then once you kind of get over that you are going skiing and you've made your peace with, hey, this is where we're going. I'm going to take the lesson. So I just really want to, here's my public service announcement. You need a helmet. I've been on skis since I was 6 years old, and I have worn a helmet. I got my first one when I was 9, and I refuse to go without my helmet. So if you don't purchase one, there's places to rent, but please have a helmet. I'm another little service announcement. Don't go skiing in jeans. They're not meant to go in the snow. They're going to get caked with snow. They're going to get cold and make it miserable. There's places that can rent you clothes along with the helmet, or just invest in some good pants and a jacket. And even if you decide to rent, you really need to invest in some good undergarments. So anything that close to your skin keeps you warm, that's something you don't want to rent. That's basically underwear. So you make that your own, but that's a must. You need to stay nice and warm and comfortable. And like we said with hiking, physically preparing yourself for it. It is a sport. It's something that is unfamiliar for anyone living down here. There's nothing comparable to this sport as far as muscle use. So you need to prep those muscles, get those legs strong, and get your endurance up and actually James alluded to this, you're going to a higher altitude. And I'm going to backtrack. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. Choosing a place to go skiing, you should also, I always say when I try to plan trips with my friends, what kind of altitude do you want? Because there's places like where I lived where it's 10,000 feet. That's a lot. That's a big change from below sea level. And there's places that are 5,000 feet. So you really are getting affected by the altitude. So there is some kind of adaptation time. So you have to decide, if you only have a few days, do you want to go to some place where it is harder to acclimatize? And then I also want to talk about skiing versus snowboarding versus telemarking. Before
you do that, really quickly, the exercises to prepare for skiing, wall sits. My dad used to have us wall sit.
So if you are skiing, you want those quads and especially those hamstrings nice and strong. Of course, core, you want to be limber because you're also going to fall. It doesn't matter how good you are, you're gonna fall. So having that extensibility allows you to absorb that energy of the fall a little bit better. But having strong quads, hamstrings, glutes, so important. And it's just going to make it more fun.
So the wall sit is literally just you put your back against the wall and you kind of go like you're sitting on an imaginary chair.
Yes. Keyword imaginary. You can't sit in a chair. That's not the same thing. So
that's a chair sit.
Delineate that. And then if you're going for snowboarding, there are different sets of muscles. You still want to make sure those quads are nice and strong, but you do have to think about the calves as well. And again, a lot of core because there's more twisting and maneuverability there. There's a plethora of websites that have training options for getting ready for skiing and snowboarding. Take advantage of them, please. And then another thing I wanted to mention as far as saving money with skiing, the most expensive lift ticket that you can buy is the one at the ticket office at the ski resort.
They can be crazy expensive.
Insane. I still can't believe how much I paid one. I'm not going to even mention it.
Say what's the highest that you've seen for a day pass?
I have paid $150 for a day pass.
Yeah.
And I've also paid as little as $30.
Wow. Okay.
So it's crazy. And so that's what you need to look at when you're deciding where to go, because especially for a family, how much is it going to cost?
Right.
But there are coupons available. There's specials. There's discounts when you rent equipment. They can throw in a couple lift tickets.
Also, if you're new and you may only have a few hours of skiing any of those first couple of days, because you're also trying to kind of acclimate, you may do just a half day pass.
Half day, exactly.
Yeah.
So just plan ahead and just know that the most expensive ticket, if you procrastinate and buy it right there at the gate, it's
wildly
obscene how much they charge for it. So yeah, those are just some other tips. If there's any other questions.
Can we talk, Ed? I think we have about 4 minutes left, and we can, if y'all want to put any questions in the chat, feel free. A little bit about rock climbing.
Ooh.
You do rock climbing and ice climbing.
So I haven't done ice climbing in so long, but rock climbing this is definitely, obviously most of us down here don't have the equipment. We haven't trained for it. So it's something, if you were to go, and actually Appalachia has some great climbing routes, but there are companies that do guided rock climbing. So being that you have a guide that will go out and set up the top rope, they will be on
That's
belay.
the part that seems just like, how would you even know how to do that? So
yes, lots of training.
Yeah.
And it's
Don't
very
do it
important
on your
to
own
get a good guide with good equipment, someone you know and trust, but it is also so much fun. Especially if someone else is doing all the work for you. So if you were to come from here, and there's a couple of shops I know of in North Carolina, you would just have to do your research. It's fun for kids. It's more safe than you would think. And it is a blast.
And that is a thing that you can practice here because there are the indoor rock climbing
Absolutely.
facilities. So rock climbing is one. Fly fishing. We went to Colorado. It was August last year, and we did a fly fishing tour, because I didn't realize that. I didn't realize they actually look like flies on your lure. And there's all this, so you would have no idea like what to put on there, and you put on these big wader suits and you're wading into the really freezing water.
Yes.
And you're fishing in it. And that was, again, could you do that on your own? But it's a whole lot easier and more efficient to do it with a guide who has the equipment, the gear, and the know-how.
And then here's because I've done fly fishing, and now I've gone fishing down here with some friends that have taken me out. And down here, you can get a fish like every 2 minutes. Fly fishing, don't expect that.
Just enjoy the beauty.
Just enjoy being in the water, the scenery, the rhythmic casting. It's amazing. It's wonderful.
Which is our takeaway for all of this, that whether it's that warm weather, the hiking, if it's the ski trip, whatever it is, it's all, when you're putting yourself in mountain travel, largely the goal is what James was saying. It's to enjoy, immerse, and really kind of just disconnect and do your best to, like you say, keep the devices off or keep them away and just soak in the serene beauty.
Be simple. There's a great question here from Jen James. Off seasons for skiing, but the snow is still good. So this is a great question because there's a lot with this. A lot of ski resorts, they use the land that's on a lease. So they have a closing date. You could have, and I've seen it, you can have 6 feet of snow. They got to close. It's heart-wrenching. But there's places that have longer leases, and I mentioned Arapahoe Basin. I've been snowboarding at a basin right before a 4th of July barbecue. So it depends on the snow that year. It depends on, is there enough coverage? It's not going to be the best skiing, but yes, when you get into anytime after late April, that's going to be, it's starting to wind down, and there are some resorts that are able to stay open. And there's glacial skiing, which is more out towards Oregon and Washington, and they are able to stay open a lot longer because they can keep their snow base.
Oh, sweet. So you can email us at dreamteam@oxnard.org if there was information or questions that you have for Scott, especially on this. I would say Scott or me, but on this one, let's be honest. If you have questions for Scott,
I'm here for you.
Yes, email dreamteam@oxnard.org.
If you have questions on spam, we'll direct that to James.
Thank you. All right, y'all. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. I've been really enjoying learning more and more about travel and each of these kind of different pieces each week.
Absolutely. It's been so much fun, especially this particular episode. I loved it.
I feel like there was so much that we could have covered, and we just I don't even know how we would fit it all in.
I don't either. Now that we did it, I could do this 3 weeks.
There's so much. But again, if you have questions, you can email us dreamteam@oxnard.org. Someone is always monitoring that. And if it is a specific mountain travel question, Scott can respond to it and help you out. So please take advantage of that. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott, for joining me.
Thank you.